Welcome back to Paint Raider, the channel devoted to rating miniature paint jobs and providing constructive feedback to your miniature paint, your miniatures, where the internet has not been all that useful. So, let's get into this one here. This comes to us courtesy of Facebook, and the comment reads, he just completed his first model, got gifted some models from my mate to finally get into the hobby. So happy to have built and painted a model at last. Any feedback and advice would be greatly appreciated. Okay, so let's have a look here. Number one, first impressions. First model painted. Man, are we serious? That's incredible. First model painted. I mean, shoot. This is better than a lot of people who have painted hundreds of models look. So I would say bravo, fantastic job, really nice. Let's take a look at some of the other photos here. Yeah. So yeah, that gives you a bit of a flavor for the paint job here. Okay, so what do I think? I mean, this is probably a 4 out of 5 to me on the tabletop scale. It does look great. Like, don't get me wrong. I think it's 4 out of 5 is a good score. It's a very good score. Yeah, and he's asking for any feedback and advice, and so I do have some feedback for him on this. The big thing that I can see. There's a few things, right? But I know that grim dark is the way that everyone likes to do things, and so I don't know what this is exactly on here. An oil wash, streaking grime, whatever. It is doing its thing, right? But it can, if you end it just at streaking grime or whatever this is. I know we like to call it grim dark, but it let's just say that it can be overused, right? And we can just calling everything, well, it's grimdark. Well, it's like, okay, but yes, there's an aesthetic of grimdark, but really you can't ignore sort of compositional things here and just call it grimdark, unless you're like going super stylized, where you're purposely ignoring rules. There are things I think that like just help with miniature painting that just can't be ignored. So, for example, what do I mean? Right. So I mean that when you put in something like this, it looks really great on things like here, right? This that looks great, right? But where it doesn't look great is on the storm bolter, right? Because unfortunately, it's not an area that we really think of as being going to be coated in this sort of way, right? So what should he do about like stuff like that is pick and choose the elements that need that grime, and the rest can sort of still be. You can still go in and do all of that stuff, that's fine. But go back in afterwards and bring back up the stuff that, like, needs to come back, right? So, at least edge highlight here, right? Just here, along this edge. And it doesn't have to be that bright. Like, it could be even the base color is fine, but it's something that, like, will help someone read that the model is like this. Because this becomes a little bit muddy, the composition, right? So it's hard to sort of distinguish things when you have that. The other big comment is really on the level of highlighting. So even though you have grimdark, I would still probably highlight this, the shoulder pad, this part here, just the top parts, right? Like a light silver even, just along this edge here. Maybe some of really bright silver up top. Right, and just along the front here, and especially along right this these edges here, I'd go pretty bright, just to draw a lot of attention to that. That's what you want. You're someone who's looking at the model to look at, right? So those are like the two main things. The other thing too is like when you use grimdark, it really does help if you do more texture type stuff, like brush strokes or sponging is a type of texture that you put in, right? If you do that before the streaking grime, so that way the streaking grime comes in, it sort of like covers up a little bit of that, some of the rougher transitions from the brush strokes, but then you can still get that texture underneath that will come through, right? So something like this, instead of being flat, like if you imagine there was a bunch of like lines here to sort of show that it was more cloth-like, then when you did the streaking grime over it, then it would tie it up a little bit more, look a little bit more credible together, and you'd get that texture still, right? It's a little more detailed, nuanced, but you can see in here that it doesn't look like it's parchment or anything like that, right? It just looks like, I don't know, paper dunked in oil. What can you say? So this is something just to keep in mind with like washes or effects like that. The other big thing I wanted to talk about on this model is on this sword here, right? So, I mean, okay, we have to keep in mind, this is the first ever paint job, so this already looks incredible for a first paint job. Totally incredible. Like, please do not get me, don't think I'm being overly negative here, right? Like, it looks great, okay? So what would I suggest, though? I would probably suggest being unafraid to let that orange really bleed over a lot of that yellow, right? The yellow doesn't need to be so humongous, and this white streak doesn't have to be so humongous. And I think, like with flame, it's a little bit more sort of alive, right? So if you do the yellow, and the white, let's say, it shouldn't really be the white, but okay, let's just say that you have that, like, really bright. And then you put an orange over a lot of it, and you get some on there. That's cool. You come back in with the yellow, and the fact that orange is there, sort of, it interacts with that new layer of yellow that will help make it seem like more organic, quote unquote organic, as a flame, right? And so I would say, like, when you're doing flames like this, you can do the yellow layer, do the orange layer, and you don't have to be all that careful with like trying to separate the yellow and the orange. And then when you go with the red, same thing, right? Like, you don't have to be that concerned if like red gets more into more area than it should, right? And the one that you'd probably want to keep back is this black, or really dark color, maybe dark purple. You can keep it more to the fringe, and there's really, it sort of depends on the look you're going for, right? But all of this can be reversed. Basically, my whole point is that all of it can be reversed. You don't have to one and done it, right? And in fact, it looks better if you don't one and done it, right? So you do all that stuff. You go back in with yellow, you go back in with some orange, and that's cool because it's flame, right? So whatever, right? Like, these lines are like, they're blurry, so the paint job should actually be a little bit blurry in terms of like, is this really like a yellow, orangey yellow, orangey red? It's like, okay, that's fine. That's actually good. Like, it makes it more seem like flame than something like this with some really hard to find yellow and hard to find red, right? Like, this will never really occur, right? So, I mean, again, right, this is still this person's first ever model, so it looks awesome. Like, it's great. This is great work. But I'm just pointing out some areas that I think that are probably the main things I would tackle if I were to try to advise this person on, things that they can do to improve the look of this model. But again, like, in context. Fantastic, amazing, great. This is a first step in a long journey, but a great step. Very good. I'm I'm a little jealous, you know, of anything. I'm like, man, I wish I could have like painted this well when I was young, but you know, whatever. You live and you learn. Anyways, so those are my thoughts on this model. Let me know what you think. Yeah, great, and I'll see you next time.